Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 83. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation, this championship weekend. Obviously, Pittsburgh not involved in it, but today we have a lot of Steelers news to discuss today. How you doing?
Doing good. It is Friday. Happy Friday to everyone. And we got all-star weeks now underway. Got Depot's got three people out here covering the East-West Shrine game. Was able to meet up last night with two of those people, obviously Dr. Melanie Friedlander and Josh Carney. Yeah. Yeah, Josh Carney. I'm looking at a couple of names here on my Twitter feed here, but got to meet up with them and have some dinner. And then Owen Straley, who's contributed to the site for quite a while, flew in later last night and going to hook up with all three of them again on, I think, Saturday night there. And then they'll obviously be busy this whole next week covering Shrine Bowl stuff. And you obviously, I think, will be flying out of Pittsburgh on Sunday, along with three other guys going to meet you down in Mobile, Alabama, to cover the Senior Bowl. So it's about that time of year again.
Yeah, really excited to have this kind of expansive, comprehensive coverage of both the Shrine. Is it Shrine Bowl now? It used to be called Shrine Game. I guess they call it Shrine Bowl.
I think they call it Shrine Bowl now. Obviously, for years it was called East-West Shrine Game.
Right.
And down in Florida, but they've obviously moved it out to Las Vegas now. Probably a smart move on their behalf there, but it is a little bit old habits are hard to break and call it the East-West Shrine Game.
But we'll have, for the Senior Bowl, myself, Jonathan Heitritter, Tyler Wise, and Jacob Harrison covering the action down in Mobile. And really excited to hear from Josh and Mel and Owen about what happens over at the Shrine Bowl. So that'll be the news to watch for over the weekend and into next week. But Dave, the big news of the day for Steelers Nation, well, the news comes as no surprise. It is now official in a video posted on Thursday morning. Ben Roethlisberger officially announcing his retirement from the NFL after 18 great Hall of Fame seasons. Just a short 2.5-minute video done at home, surrounded by his wife, Ashley, and his three kids, and just a really nice kind of reflection and thank you to his family and to the Steelers and to Steelers Nation. And so it seems to be very quiet and pretty private for all the media talk about how Ben wants to be in the spotlight and always be the center of attention and play things up. This is a very quiet and kind of reserved way to go about retirement. No press conference, no giant media thing, just a short video and kind of getting out of the public eye. And so, it's official now. Ben retiring after 18 years in the NFL and all 18 years as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, now we just wait for the official for whenever that move comes, where he's placed on the reserve retired list and all. But and that'll obviously could and should have an impact on what his cap charge is. So obviously Ben's contract is set to expire or set to void 5 days after the Super Bowl. We'll have to see how that language gets adjusted, if it gets adjusted, if they end up or are able to get him to officially retire after June 1st, which would save the team a little bit of salary cap space this year and all. But interesting choice of dates, January 27th being the date that he kind of formally announce that he would be retiring there. Look, there's a lot of significant things attached to that date, and that was the subject of my terrible take yesterday. The Chief, Art Rooney, his birthday is on January 27th, and the Steelers obviously officially named Chuck Noll head coach on a January 27th. Terry Bradshaw was drafted on a January 27th. That same day, Mel Blount was drafted. The Steelers way back in 1955, not that it has as much significance, but they drafted Johnny Unitas on that day on January 27th. And unfortunately, January 27th was a date that in 2002 that the Steelers lost to the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game that season and all. So a lot of significant things have happened in Steelers history related to that date. I don't know if it was by coincidence or if that was kind of planned to be that way, but I think it goes without saying that it won't be hard to remember the date that Ben Roethlisberger officially announced his retirement there. So the good thing is he picked a good day overall. I think when it comes to the news cycle, I don't think there was anything really that overshadowed him. So I think I think it just worked out perfect that he got a lot of the pretty much nearly all the limelight yesterday, and a lot of segments obviously coming off of NFL.com and NFL Network. A lot of people, if you missed a lot of those, and there were some great ones there, you should be able to find them, I think, in my Twitter feed there if you look hard enough there. And I know the Steelers this morning, I don't know if you got a chance to zip over and look at it, Alex, but they have a video now up on YouTube that's linked from the Steelers Twitter account of every touchdown pass that he threw during his career. So it's over an hour long.
Oh, wow.
Just in that. And I started to thumb through a lot of the early ones there, bring back some memories for sure. So quite a career. And yeah, now I expect him just to ride off into the sunset. I don't expect any media tours. I don't think we'll see out of him, in the next few weeks on top of it.
Yeah, I think he'll be pretty quiet and reserved and away from that, public sphere for quite some time after living in that limelight and spotlight for, a very, very long time. Well, I don't have any video to it because that would have been an insane project to do. On Depot this morning, I put together a list of every player that's caught a pass from Ben and how many passes that they've caught, from Antonio Brown's 796 passes caught from Ben all the way down to Willie Reed's 4 to Tyler Murphy's 1 and only career catch coming from Ben. And so it's a big long table that I had fun researching last night. But to Ben himself, I know we've talked about his career quite a bit because we knew this would be the end and what happened after the Browns game and those kinds of things. And he was already kind of in that quasi retirement. But I said before, and I said in my terrible take today, I mean, I'm 28 years old, and he's basically the really lone Steelers quarterback I really remember watching my entire life. And so I'm probably in that camp with a ton of people listening to the podcast right now. So it's just I feel very grateful, but just very, very weird thought to know that, he's no longer going to be the quarterback of this team. It's a transition for him, a transition for the team. It's also a transition, I think, for a lot of Steeler fans like me who just grew up knowing only number 7.
Yeah, different era now for sure. And really going into the great unknown, kind of like I was growing up, and after Terry Bradshaw, his days ended there. I was extremely spoiled as a kid growing up through that time, and just seemed like every other year, or for a while there, seemed like every year the Steelers were winning the Super Bowl there. So you kind of expect that was the expectations that you had at the time, but lo and behold, after Bradshaw called it quits and all, and you got into the 80s and all like that, there were a lot of lean years in there. I mean, they were still making the playoffs obviously several times throughout there, but never really getting never really getting close to the to another Super Bowl after that, obviously, until Ben came along and the 2005 season there. But it's going to be quite different. It's going to be interesting covering this team at least through this initial process here until we find out who is the week 1 quarterback starting for this team starting in 2022.
Yeah, we still don't know. It's going to be, I think, pretty wide open in terms of, who that could be and the possibilities and where that guy could come from. It could be, I think, a variety of different places. But for Ben himself, just the way that you'll remember him as a player, just tough, competitive, a winner. Those are kind of the things that'll come to mind first. It's just that high level competition, never give up, never say die attitude that I think is kind of required for the position, and allowed teammates to consistently rally around him and his team in good times and bad. And so, while obviously I think that having Mike Tomlin, a great culture, and kind of getting guys to buy in has been really important over the decades, I think Ben's presence and leadership and mentality has probably resonated with so many players as well. You'd see him at training camp in days where he wouldn't practice, wouldn't be around for some reason. The energy was just a lot lower. And so just his mere presence kind of really puts a jolt into these guys. And that's something that'll be missed and a void that'll have to be filled.
Absolutely. And, we had the round table the other day with the guys, and I got a lot of great feedback from that. And, obviously it was really, really good, 2+ hour show there. And we did a lot of talking about the quarterback position in that show. And, we're going to be talking quarterbacks quite a bit more, I think, throughout this process here on top of it, especially with you guys going down to the Senior Bowl and all those top quarterbacks being down there. Jay Glazer continues to kind of say the same thing he has said now for several weeks now. And I think the most recent thing that he had to say was on a short kind of interview on USA Today and one of the show's sports sensations or something like that they do. Jay Glazer was on there, and once again, he said that he does not, he expects the Steelers to go with a more veteran player at the quarterback position and not a rookie. Now, obviously, this does, you can draft a player and not play him, but it sure seems to feel like, according to what Jay Glazer continues to say, and he has said this several times in several different interviews now, is the fact that he expects the Steelers' next quarterback to be a veteran of some sort.
Did he be Mason Rudolph? Did he imply more of a free agency route? I didn't hear those comments. I know he said something similar in the past, but was there any more detail to it?
No, just I know they want a veteran. So
okay.
I think that's the key kind of quote to come out of that is I know they want a veteran. So
Rudolph, Haskins, or free agent, I would presume, or obviously potential trade option if one becomes available.
The way I took it is, and I'll have to go back and parse it a little bit more, but not a rookie. Obviously Haskins and Mason fit that criteria there, but look, we'll have our answers here fairly quick, and you would think if the Steelers were going to go the free agency or trade route throughout this offseason. I mean, we're a little less than 7 weeks away from the start of the new league year, and if you're going to be in the market for a quarterback at that time, you would think at least by a week into free agency, right? So I would say 8 weeks from now, we will have a pretty good idea of if it's going to be an outsider along those lines of a veteran, or if there's going to be a better chance of it being someone like Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins.
Right. Just to go back to Ben, because there's going to be so much time to talk about the future of this team. Do you have any favorite Ben memory that isn't well known? Obviously, everyone loves the touchdown to Antonio Holmes and those kind of big marquee moments that you're going to see on his highlight reel time and time again. I posted a thread yesterday on kind of smaller Ben-like moments, but just regardless, do you have any favorite memory of Ben that isn't well known from the national media, national world perspective?
No, I mean, look, everything obviously is in snippets in my mind. I think more than anything. And the thing that's come back to my mind that I've tried to tweet out a couple of times is, you look at what has transpired with Ben these last 2 or 3 years and kind of the style of football that he played. I think a lot of people really, not necessarily forget, but I mean, the recency has a big impact on one's mind and one's memory when it comes to him. I mean, just the way that he used to I mean, look, I mean, who will forget a few of those Ravens games? I think some of those really come rushing to the forefront. Him getting the bloody nose and that him escaping pressure and just being able to throw the football away.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say against Suggs. That's my second favorite play behind the Holmes touchdown is that escape from Suggs.
And then even the one in the Super Bowl, the one where they ran the Z flash play, but it wasn't completed. The one where he had to throw to avoid pressure and get away from that one. But just the thing that comes rushing back in my mind that will always be the biggest thing. And really, if you go back and look at some of these those early touchdowns that he threw even in his rookie season that they have up on SteelersDepot.com, and go back and look at on Steelers.com via their YouTube channel. And even if you go back and look at some of the big plays that he made as a rookie, not necessarily touchdowns, it's just how quickly you could kind of see him becoming that backyard bin player. And look, he didn't throw for a lot of yards in his first couple of years, right? Obviously it was a big, heavy run offense, and everything was kind of built around that. But there were obviously several times in those first couple of years specifically that it was really, him extending the play, and you could see why he was quickly becoming a franchise guy for the organization here. So I think those are the things that when I think back and obviously come time for him to get into Canton, those are the kind of highlights that people will show that will give proof that he deserved to be in a Pro Football Hall of Fame, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I was going to say, in terms of like specific plays, the escape from Suggs in that game where he had the broken nose and throws a touchdown pass to Redmond to win it 2 plays later, that kind of sums up who Ben was and who Suggs was in that rivalry and how great and competitive and awesome it was to watch. Another clip I posted in that thread on my Twitter account yesterday, the 3rd and 18 run against Buffalo. This was, 2010, 2011-ish. And he, runs away, gets the first down. He does that on a one leg because he twisted his ankle badly the play before, could barely move, and gets away and somehow has the adrenaline to run for a first down. And then just little things, watching him at training camp, taking a young player aside, talking to a guy. Not that that's unique to Ben. A lot of quarterbacks do that. I get that. But just getting to see some of those moments up close and personal. And the last play watching him at training camp was a touchdown to Pat Fryman with a little nod route, right sideline or right seam. So just getting to see that as the last in-person play I got to watch from Ben, I'll remember that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you'll run out of superlatives really quick to try to describe some of those things. And look, I mean, the Antonio Brown years. I mean, the magic those two, like it or not. I mean, obviously, it's a shame how things have turned out for Antonio Brown. But, man, those two sure made a lot of big plays together, a ton of big plays. And they will forever be they will be forever linked together with amount of completions and touchdowns those two had together there. So you think back and Ben was never the fleetest of foot, but he did make a lot of big plays with his legs over the years on top of it there. And obviously using the legs, not only just scramble situation to pick up yards and occasionally rush for a touchdown that way, but man, the amount of yardage that he ran behind the line of scrimmage, you go back and look at some of those old highlights that way too. So, I don't think there's going to be a problem with Ben being a first ballot guy whatsoever. I know, thankfully Eli retired a couple of years ago, and then Phillip Rivers. I don't know if I assume Phillip already put it in his papers and would be a year eligible ahead of Ben Roethlisberger, and we'll see obviously what happens with Tom Brady and all like that. But I think he should be able to have a lot of the spotlight there come time, and I would fully expect him to be a first ballot guy.
I would as well. I know there's been some debate from the national media. There shouldn't be any debate. I think I fully expect this guy to be first ballot, and it's at 2027 on that. So he should be in Canton. That's going to be a wonderful weekend, no doubt. And it was nice to see the outpouring of support from fans and teammates and coaches, even some the two in particular, which you weren't sure of in terms of congratulations and celebrations, were Terry Bradshaw had a very nice message. It's been great to see that Bradshaw and Ben have seemed to kind of mend their relationship after it was pretty icy for the first, 10 plus years of Ben's career. And then even Antonio Brown with a nice Instagram message and a couple of photos of them. And obviously we know how those things kind of ended in terms of their relationship in Pittsburgh. So it was good to see AB at least acknowledge and send a nice message Ben's way.
And I think even on one of the ones that the Steelers put out on their, at least on their Twitter feed, I showed some of the from quarterbacks. You had one from Jim Kelly, from Dan Marino in there, and even Tommy touchdown.
Yeah, Tommy gun. That was cool.
Yeah, touchdown Tommy at the end of that one there, and you go back and you hear some of these stories after the fact here about. Tommy was not happy that the Steelers drafted Ben Roethlisberger that year. I mean, probably kind of understandable. So, but who knew? They gave. The plan was originally for Ben Roethlisberger to sit out his rookie season, but you never know how that kind of stuff's going to transpire there. But things just fell into place kind of perfectly, if you will, for Roethlisberger, and even in the rookie season there, rattling off the amount of victories that he had right in a row there, and lo and behold, here the Steelers in one game away from the Super Bowl that year, and just everything kind of grew from there. And I think when you look back, obviously in the later years, and some, it's a shame that they didn't get to more Super Bowls, but obviously when you're competing against the Patriots in their heyday and all like that, that was a big deterrent, related to that and all. But it is a shame that they did not get to more Super Bowls there with him.
Especially the last 10 years, 11 years. You had that success early on, and that's, pretty strong standard going to 3 Super Bowls within his first, 6-7 years in the NFL. But everything since then has been difficult and a bit of a disappointment, but not, generally speaking, Ben's fault. Obviously, it's been the fault of poor defenses or injuries or just running into the buzzsaw that are the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. So, those kinds of things happen. But again, a Hall of Fame career, first ballot, and, don't think we'll see a better quarterback come through Pittsburgh. Maybe ever, probably ever, but at least not for a long, long time.
Well, never's a long time. I always like to remind people of that. But I think in my lifetime, whatever I got left, I don't think I'll see some of this stuff broken. Some of the records that he's had. I mean, playing 18 seasons. I mean, you just don't see that. Nowadays there, and even some of these great quarterbacks in the league now makes you kind of wonder, will they be able to play that long in the NFL and all like that? And obviously Brady's played a long time, but where is that next wave of kind of great quarterbacks? I think we've already starting to see some of them in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and will Joe Burrow be part of that group? And kind of moving forward from there. But the further you get away from this, I think people will realize how special it was. People in your age group, obviously you didn't take him for granted or anything along those lines.
Well, you probably do to an extent because you're just spoiled by it. You just always knew a great quarterback, so you probably do to an extent. It's not guaranteed to be smooth sailing here, at least for the next few years here, especially when you look at this year's draft class and, the expectations now in the NFL back then, back when Ben was drafted, you kind of had a little bit of a leeway in the aspect of letting those quarterbacks sit. But now most of these franchises now get those guys right into the fire early, and a lot of them don't have a time to sink or swim, Right. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine if the next Steelers rookie quarterback's like Ben and his third string, just, going into the year, and it's like, oh my goodness, this guy's third string, he can't even become the backup. He's a bust, just that crazy knee-jerk reaction world. But I think 2019 certainly provided the window in what the post-Ben era could look like. Hopefully it'll be better than that without, a second-year guy like Mason and a rookie like Duck. But, certainly it's going to be a challenge. The last thing on Ben, I'll say, we've talked about this before, Dave, what I'll remember about him is that he played at a really high level as two totally separate styles of quarterbacks. His first decade being the backyard Ben, run around, throw off defensive tackles, make the play kind of Ben. And then he had to transition into becoming more pocket passer Ben, with the ball coming out quicker to save his body so he wasn't getting sacked 40, 50 times a season, something just unsustainable as he got into his 30s. And he played for several years at a really high level as that style of Ben, with the occasional sandlot backyard play. So not only did he play, had a great 18-year career for about 15 years, it was just, different styles. First 10, it was backyard Ben. The next 5-6 years, it was, more pocket passer Ben. And he did both of those things at a really high competitive level. And there are very few players that can have success for that long period, but to do that as kind of two different guys is all the more impressive.
And you talk about things that you remember, non-San Antonio Holmes throw, not the higher profile kind of moments in his career. You look back at some of the times that he played when he probably shouldn't have, and it really took a lot to keep him off the field. Period. I mean, you go back to that, what did he have, that ankle injury against San Francisco on, what was it, that Monday night game or something, and all he had to go through to get himself on the field for that game, and
probably shouldn't have played in hindsight, considering how that one went. But that's Ben,
that was him. And Tom Brady. I know a lot of people don't like Tom Brady that listen, Steeler fans that listen to this show and all, but I thought Tom Brady had a great tweet yesterday that he attached Ben's video to. He said Ben defied the TB12 method in favor of the throw some ice on it method his whole career, and ended up an all-time great with 6 Pro Bowls and 2 Super Bowls. There's more than one way to bake a cake, and for sure Ben Roethlisberger baked the cake a lot different.
Yeah, there's no cake in the TB12 method, but in the Ben method there's probably a good deal of cake. Right.
And it just goes to show you there were different ways to do it, and Ben Roethlisberger really was a throwback quarterback, and in today's NFL with there's a lot of emphasis now on getting the football out quickly, and if not, you better be able to extend the play, and Ben did both of that. Ben had, his career included him kind of really mastering both of those aspects of the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I tweeted out what I had heard yesterday. His very first game against Baltimore in 2004 after Maddox got hurt, I went back and watched part of that game, and the announcer said that Ben had a knee injury in practice earlier that week, and they weren't sure if he was going to play. So the guy's literally been hurt and playing hurt since before he even took his first NFL snap, or his very first NFL snap, which kind of just encapsulates the type of quarterback that Ben was.
Right. Imagine if he misses that start, or misses that opportunity to get into the game in that situation, and they continue on, with his rookie season with the idea of maybe trying not to play him. Who knows how things would have played out ultimately.
Yeah, but they played out the way they played out, and it turned into a Hall of Fame career and 2 more Super Bowls for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you really can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, and you go back to even the Super Bowl that they lost. A lot of people forget that Marquise Pouncey was not able to play in that game, and I think they were banged up a little bit more than that on top of it, and they still came pretty dang close to being able to pull that one off as well.
Right, yeah, it was a 1-score game. I know they scored late and had 2-point conversion and all that, but still, I mean, that wasn't as much of a blowout as I think people think it was. I mean, Green Bay certainly controlled and dominated that game from kind of the get-go, but Pittsburgh rallied and made the game out of it.
And I guess to some degree, and I don't know why and how it surfaced this week, but the whole Mike Singletary comments.
Yeah, what a story that was. And I guess the reason why it came up was the story on Singletary for potentially being the Bears head coach, which I'm not sure why that was even a story in the first place. And it's now moot because the Bears have hired somebody not named Mike Singletary to be their head coach. But the story is, to hear Singletary tell it, is that he vetoed a trade that would have sent Ben to San Francisco. That according to Singletary, the trade was in place. The ownership, Jed York and Trent Baalke, came to Singletary and said this trade's in place, and Singletary shot it down to stick by Alex Smith. And so this came, we don't know exactly when. It was probably 2010 after Ben's sexual assault allegations, the second one. And so there were rumors and reports that the Steelers were trying to trade him at that time. And it never sounded like anything got close, but to hear it now from Singletary, it sounds like it got really close and almost happened. And so that was a big revelation that I'd never heard before.
What do they call that? A watershed moment, or is that a definition of
I think it's the right word for it.
But, even when you were putting that, I was able to forward you a link that I think included some info that maybe you had maybe forgotten.
Yeah.
There was a lot of scuttlebutt at the time and quote unquote reports at the time, even 2009, and on into 2010, that there were a few times that the Steelers were reportedly thinking about shopping Roethlisberger. And I think one of those was, I think the Raiders, I think wasn't the other team, the Rams, Alex?
The Rams were talked about. Yeah.
And then now, and as far as I can remember, I don't remember the 49ers talk or anything about the 49ers back in that time. And also that seemed to be kind of new. I guess where I'm coming from is, what does a guy like Mike Singletary have to gain by throwing something out there like that, wasn't true?
Yeah, I don't think he's lying. The only thing would be how close of a done deal was it really? I guess we don't know that information, but I take Singletary at his word whenever he says that, there was at least some advanced talks between the two sides.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something that'll ever come out down the line in a Kevin Colbert book, or I doubt Art Rooney would ever spill the beans on that, right?
Right.
But I mean, when was Doug Whaley with the organization?
I think at that point he was in Buffalo, because I remember reading the article that you'd sent me that said Buffalo didn't have any interest in trading for Ben at that point.
Okay. Somebody knows something, whether or not that happened at all, and how monumental would that have been? Because I think a lot of the talk at that time, especially in a potential deal with I guess the Rams, was I remember they were talking about, or at least speculation that maybe the Steelers are trying to get into that number one spot to draft a guy like Sam Bradford, and how would that have played out,
Yeah. Football history would have changed significantly. So that was an interesting nugget. But again, the bottom line has been remained a Steeler, and that's kind of what's important for the here and now.
Right, and once again, we don't know if indeed any of these things happen. It's just when you have the Singletary story like that emerge like it did this week, and obviously had to write about that kind of stuff,
sure.
and the timing, unfortunately, is unfortunate, with Ben retiring this week. But, I mean, look, things played out the way he did. He wasn't traded. He played his entire career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and turned out to be a damn good one.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the way that I think Steeler fans will choose to remember number 7. And I don't know when we'll see him again. Hopefully sometime in the near future. Again, I don't expect him to become a coach or a broadcaster or reality TV or any of those things, but hopefully he pops in and out. I'm sure you'll see him on your local golf course, probably in, Fox Chapel or something. You'll probably see him out there on the front nine.
I imagine there's going to be a lot of hunting and a lot of golfing in Ben Roethlisberger's future. At least in the next 5 years and all like that. And I don't think he probably wants a lot to do with the limelight right now. I wouldn't expect any kind of media tour right now. I don't know, 2 or 3 years down the line, probably somebody would be able to catch up with him. But on top of it too, he never really had the best relationship, I don't think, with anybody with ESPN overall, and NFL Network, to say the least. He's never been,
no Ian Rappaport exclusive coming.
Right, and never been a fan of NFL Network or any of those things there. So unless he was to do some sort of I know he's always had kind of a good relationship, I think, with Mike Pursuta, DVE, and really DVE kind of specifically. They might get him to hop on every once in a while, do an interview, that way. But I bet he's just ready to, for the next couple of years, take a deep breath and not have to answer any questions,
Sure. Yeah, and just be Ben and not Big Ben for the next couple of years and be with his family and hunt and golf and just live his life that isn't football. And, we'll see how tough of a transition that is for him. I'm sure it'll be difficult to some degree because that's all he's ever known is playing football, being a quarterback. But I'm sure he'll do well in whatever, comes next in his, as Chuck Noll would like to say, his life's work.
Mm-hmm. Now, what, do you have any, we've talked about the whole Jay Glazer line of thinking here for quite a while now. How much credence do you give maybe what Jay Glazer continues to say?
Yeah, I think it's important because we know he has about as close of a relationship with Mike Tomlin as anyone in the media. They hang out together, they watch fights together. I mean, they're pretty buddy. So you certainly take that insight, but it could mean still a lot of things. It doesn't exclude you from drafting a rookie and sitting him and signing a veteran or just starting Mason or Haskins or something like that. So I mean, it's important information, but it doesn't really close a lot of doors, in my opinion.
Okay.
All right, Dave, let's, and again, I think we had a good conversation there about Ben, and, we'll talk about him some more probably throughout the offseason and talk about the future of the position for sure throughout the offseason. But I'm burying the lead here about the biggest news of the day yesterday, Dave. John Simon signing a futures contract with the team. So the 32-year-old John Simon will stay in Pittsburgh for at least part of the offseason.
Look, they we'll have to obviously see what happens in the draft and on into free agency and all like that. But starting off right now, you still have a lot of questions about the depth of that outside linebacker position. And I know people will say, yeah, but Taco this and Derek Tuska this. I mean, those guys, to me, both those guys are fourth string outside linebackers. Not necessarily guys I want on the field playing a heavy rotation of snaps, at least from what I saw on their tape. Now, could Taco maybe progress a little bit? Now, here's the thing: John Simon's got a lot of snaps and got a lot of experience, but he's long in the tooth now, and his better days are behind him as well too. So. I think we're going to see a lot of mud thrown at that outside linebacker position throughout the offseason. Now, do I think that they will go first round draft pick with an outside linebacker spot? I doubt it unless one of those top, unless maybe one of those top, I don't know, like a Michigan or who's the kid at Thibodeau.
From Oregon, he's a top. He's gonna be a top.
Yeah,
pick, though, probably.
I mean, unless guys like that somehow fall down, I don't expect that. Now, is there will we likely see this team maybe draft an outside linebacker at some point during the draft? I think it's possible there, but I think one of the things, going into this offseason, look, you're set at the starter position, right? You hope that both those guys stay healthy and obviously in TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith there, but can you continually ask those guys to play, or stay healthy, a large amount of snaps there? So I think it is very important to maybe do your best to come out of this upcoming offseason with a guy that you're comfortable with being that third guy in the rotation there.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin has, literally said and called the edge group the engine of our car. I mean, you want more than two cylinders in your car, despite how good those two cylinders are in TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, who I thought really progressed the last couple weeks of the season. So Highsmith, I thought, really came on strong and looked like the way that I thought he would play throughout the entire year. So, yeah, you're always looking to add. I thought Taco did well for catching that moving train and for being an unusual body type for the position. And Tuskegee even made a couple plays late in the season. But it was surprising to see Simon come back. He really will have to be the number 3 outside linebacker for this team because he's not going to offer any special teams value. And so it'll have to be kind of a Melvin Ingram-like thing where he's like the clear-cut, top rotational guy, and the odds of Simon capturing that role are probably pretty slim. So I'm not going to get too mad about a futures contract, veteran guy, that's fine, but I'm not expecting much from him.
Right. It kind of feels like something would have to happen that would elevate Simon into a starting role for him to stick. But
at this point, there's no guarantee it makes it to training camp. It could be just one of those post OTA rookie minicamp cut kind of deals.
And to be quite honest with you, I got to admit, I was surprised when that came across the wire yesterday. I kind of thought that, good look. He's been around the league for a while, but obviously I guess he still wants to play, or else he wouldn't have signed a contract. I would have thought maybe he would have given himself more time. Someone like him, why rush out and sign a futures deal right now when so much could happen? He's 31 years old, so he's a little bit younger than maybe what I thought there. But and he won't turn 32 until October there. So maybe I guess he still thinks he's got some juice in there, and it'd be interesting to watch play out. But as we sit here right now today, and it's dangerous to do this kind of thing, you would think his chances of being on the 53 are less than 50-50.
Much less than 50-50, like 10 to 15% chance at best, probably right now for him.
Because once again, this guy's not going to run down kickoffs or be a 4-core guy or even a two team guy for you. If you put this guy in uniform and he's not a starter, he's going to be standing on the sideline quite a bit unless you rotate him into the game there. But at least it does give them some experience there. Should something, God forbid, happen.
Sure.
In the meantime, and it is cheap, and you're not going to use up much of any cap space here moving forward with a guy like him.
Two other pieces of news, Dave, that came across yesterday over the last couple of days. Pittsburgh worked out a pair of CFL kids yesterday. Javon Cotty, a wide receiver, interesting story, big body, 6'5", 230, listed, played for the BC Lions the last 2 seasons. Has an interesting story that you sent me, Dave, was playing football years ago, then tore his ACL, became a firefighter, took 2 years off of football, then just gave another shot, and it's been productive. And so has not signed as of this recording, but interesting story, interesting size. And then the other CFL kid that's getting all the headlines here for its name, Money Hunter. That is his name, Money Hunter, defensive back, the son of Torrey Hunter, the all-star outfielder for many years in the MLB. Hunter was playing with the Montreal Alouettes. He had 44 tackles, 2 interceptions this past year. He's worked out with the Cardinals and Patriots earlier this month, who's kind of been on a circuit, on a tour. So we'll see if he signs with Pittsburgh again. Has not happened yet, but that is the name. His real name is Monchadrick. But everyone calls him Money, and so Money Hunter is his name.
Sounds like, and that's the first I'd heard his name yesterday, to be honest with you.
Me too.
And sounds like something. I think our own Josh Carney told me yesterday after that came across. It sounded like some sort of name somebody makes up as a character on a Madden sim or something. Money Hunter. But look, I mean, got to turn over all those stones, right? So we'll see. I mean, the futures list will obviously grow throughout the off season, and you probably bring those guys in obviously to work out. So who knows? By the end of the day, maybe we're writing up something up on the team signing one of these guys.
Yeah, I don't believe either of these guys have played in the NFL yet. Hunter played at Arkansas State. I didn't find any record of him even signing with a team. I could be mistaken for a mini camp or something. He's mostly spent his career in the CFL, and I believe Cotty has spent his whole career in the CFL, was born. He's a native Canadian, and so he's not, I don't believe, played in the NFL yet. But interesting names there. Some of those CFLers float down to the NFL, and so we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And speaking of quarterbacks, what do you think about Naji Harris? Naji usually does a good job of not getting himself painted into a corner. At least, when it comes to the interviews that I've seen so far, seemed like he got painted into a little bit of a corner in an interview with CBS.
Yeah, he was on with CBS yesterday and was asked about what he's looking for. Does he have any preference or any inclination in terms of what he's looking for in the next quarterback? And he said, he wants someone who's competitive, is a real effort guy, a leader. Some of the traits that he believes that he has, and I think he certainly has those things. And then he did get into more specifics, which did surprise me. He said, quote, "There's names that pass my mind. I don't really know the scenarios of everything, but Deshaun Watson's always in there. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how close he is to coming to retirement, but he's somebody I think even guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, I like him too." So gave out some names, which of course will draw headlines. I thought Matthew had tweeted we were talking about that in our DMs last night, and he had said that's the headline of the article. I thought he was joking at first because I didn't hear the comments yet, and I thought he was kind of joking about what Harris was saying. But it was a bit surprising to see Harris give specific names, but I'm okay with that. I appreciate honesty and candid answers, and he wasn't bashing Rudolph or Haskins or anything like that, so I have no problem with what Harris said.
Well, the way that'll be painted is he didn't.
Sure.
He didn't mention Rudolph and Haskins, so that's the way that'll be. And look, that's the first thing that get. Here's the only problem that I had with this is him allowing himself to get painted into that corner. Why not just say, we got a couple of great quarterbacks here. Let's see if we can, just give them the cliche stuff.
Yeah, but I appreciate when a guy doesn't do that because it is so easy and players are so common to give the cliches to avoid the headline.
Well, now he's got to walk back into that locker room at some point, and anyway, I don't mind it so much in certain instances like that where they go to cliche route and all. But
by the time he walks in that locker room, the story is going to be long forgotten. I mean, this season's. I mean, I'm not. I get it. I mean, is that what I would have said? Especially mentioning Deshaun Watson, his situation. No, but it's fine. I have no problem with it.
I tell you, Deshaun Watson is a name that obviously, when you bring it up, it automatically invokes a lot of, I guess, controversy to go along with it. I've gotten, I think, a few emails on it, some Twitter, comments. And what about, is Deshaun Watson a possibility for the Steelers? And look, my only answer to that would be, it all depends on how the legal aspect, the things that he's dealing with, play out. How quickly that gets settled one way or the other is going to determine this guy's future, not only ability to maybe play for the Steelers, but any other team for that matter. Will he play for a team in 2022? Probably, right?
Yeah, you would, and I don't know the situation closely, but you would think the legal stuff would be resolved in the next couple of months. Yeah, sooner than later. But I mean, I don't know that to be a fact, but it sounds like there's progress for that. So you would imagine there'll be a resolution one way or another in the near future.
What percentage of possibility would you give, him if it works out, if things work out in a more, I guess, positive way for Deshaun Watson with the legal situations and all that he has? Is there any possibility that he lands in Pittsburgh?
I think those odds are pretty low. Obviously, that's an easy thing to say. I don't like to close doors on anything. I was pretty convinced the guy was going to go to Miami, as I think most of us were. And now that Flores is out, I don't know what the situation is going to be like there. I guess there's always a chance.
It would always, wherever he lands, obviously, when he gets in front of the camera, is going to be quite, a distraction of some point, at least initially, with him.
Sure. Yeah, no question. It'll be a very difficult first interview. That'll be the first thing that'll be talked about. Not the celebration of a new quarterback. It'll be all those allegations, and understandably so. So. Yeah, that's what teams will have to weigh and decide. And obviously it's going to cost a lot too. I mean, Houston reportedly is asking the moon for this guy. So Pittsburgh could in theory afford that. Not that they couldn't, but it would cost a pretty penny. It would cost the farm to acquire him.
Right. Yeah. If you did something with him, then, you probably restructure his contract or something along those lines there. I mean, it could be done,
Sure.
Look, he's a talented guy on the football field. You want to talk about that mobility and all like that. It would be an intriguing situation if somehow, some way he did land in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but again, there's a lot of time to discuss that. It'll be a long off season, and so we can talk about that. And again, as you said, his legal situation has to be concluded before this even becomes a real tangible, possible conversation that we're having right now.
And then, what would it cost to acquire somebody like that if indeed it came down to a trade type scenario?
Yeah, it's going to cost a lot. I forget what Houston was reportedly asking for, but it was multiple first round picks and players. It would be, like I said, the farm to acquire him. And you can argue that it's worth it, but just recognize it is going to cost a lot.
Absolutely.
One more piece of news here, Dave, I want to get to, and I'm loath to even talk about it. And at this point, who knows is kind of the answer to the situation about when and if Kevin Colbert will retire. John Clayton going on 93.7 The Fan on Wednesday to shoot down the reports that Colbert is going to retire, says that he has made no plans, Colbert has, to determine whether or not he'll retire after the draft or not. But just 2 weeks ago, it was John Clayton saying it was 100% that Colbert was stepping down after the draft. So John Clayton refuting the report of John Clayton and I guess others as well. All that to say, we'll see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen right now.
Yeah, John Clayton has issues with John Clayton's reporting, I guess.
Yes, very much so.
It's gotten to a point where you think back with John Clayton kind of over the years and thinking, man, that guy was the NFL insider, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was a big fan because he wasn't like the former player. He was the nerdy, weird-looking guy like me, and I was like, that's my guy. I can relate to you, John, and it kind of sucks to see him fall like this.
I mean, and it just isn't, a couple of days ago either. I mean, this has been going on now for a couple of off seasons now where he doesn't have a grasp on really anything insider. He's horrible when it comes to, you're talking about TJ Watt. What did you say? TJ Watt was like 16 million or something. Speculated. I forget what exactly. He was way off on what he was pretty sure a guy like TJ Watt would get, and along those lines. And yeah, I mean, it's gotten where it's, here's the thing. Someone like him with the name recognition, when he gets on, draws attention to it, especially when he says on some of these local radio shows that this, that, and the other, that draws the headlines. And but when you drill it down, a lot of times it's wrong. It's wrong info, and I don't see where the draw is to continually have a guy on your radio show that is so wrong like that, but I mean, that's what I guess radio and television is now. I mean, you got guys that just dabble in, they know enough a little bit about the headlines that they just speculate on it with no ounce of, I mean, it's tabloid, it's become tabloid radio and TV, and it's not just, it didn't happen overnight, but that's what it is. And really, I guess overall, you and I should be thankful for that, to some degree, because
sure, it drives more people to us.
Right. It drives more people to us. And yeah, we can, it gives us easy stuff to shoot fish in the barrel with too, to show people that stuff's not right, or not correct most of the time on it. So, we sit here and we complain about it and say, why does that happen? I'm not so sure that kind of stuff isn't good for our business overall, but, yeah, I mean, I go back to the main topic here. He doesn't know. I don't think he knows when and if for sure it's going to happen.
And again, the post-draft retirement for Colbert, well, I guess it's still possible because Clayton's not the only one to report that, to be clear. It just is a strange timing. It's a very unusual occurrence for a GM to do that. And I get the internal aspect of it as well. Should mention as well that Brandon Hunt's been interviewed by we mentioned that on Wednesday's show, I guess, that Brandon Hunt's been interviewed by the Raiders for their GM spot. But it'd just be very strange timing, very unusual. And again, I know in Baltimore, everyone wants to tell me about DeCosta and Newsome. DeCosta became GM of the Ravens January of 2019. Go look up the date that DeCosta was named GM. It was not after the draft. Newsome in 2018 said, that's going to be my last season as the actual GM. I'm going to move into reserve role after the season. And that's exactly what happens. It did not occur mid-year the way that people want to try to make it believe that it happened that way.
So what are you trying to say here? That there's, maybe a chance that Kevin Colbert stays on one more season, or at least one more season?
I think it's possible. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but it is highly unusual for GM changes to occur post-draft. That is not when those typically take place.
Well, I've talked about how curious it is, and especially if I'm set to be the guy to come in after, right. I sure would want. I sure want more of those decisions to kind of be on me,
Right, but at that point, just why not name that guy GM if he's going to be the one making the decisions? That just seems, because it just gets messy. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Who's leading? Who's making final calls here? It's not a it's not as healthy as it could be.
What chance do you put on the fact that we turn around and we get the one more year from Colbert?
I mean, I'll say the words that most analysts are scared to say. Apparently, Clayton's one of them. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think there's a chance. I think it makes more sense for him to stay the full year, but I do not know.
All right.
And I don't like getting on the media types too much because I just view it as low-hanging fruit. But John Clayton over the years, I'm just going to read some headlines we've written over the time. John Clayton, April of last year. John Clayton expects GM Kevin Colbert to be around for the Steelers post-Ben transition. So we'll see if that's true or not. April 21st of last year, so just a couple days before the draft, Clayton believes Steelers will spend first-round pick on tackle or edge rusher, not running back. That was grossly incorrect. April 15th of last year, Clayton remains convinced Villanueva is still likely to re-sign with Steelers. He really beat that drum several times in the offseason, and Villanueva was told right after the season ended that Steelers were not going to re-sign him. So that was horribly false. Clayton last year, I think Ben's going to be around for 2 more years. That was false. January of last year, John Clayton speculates Bud Dupree will settle for around $6 million this offseason. That was swing and a miss there. July of 2020 thinks that TJ Watt, it'll be very difficult to get paid Myles Garrett type of money. He beat that contract pretty easily. And those are just some of the things that I've kind of just went back and looked on. So John Clayton may be a guy we shouldn't listen to anymore.
Right.
All right, Dave, any other news about the NFL or the Steelers that I didn't address that you wanted to touch on?
I think we got most of it there, right? Getting ready for the All-Star games is going to keep us busy this next week and all like that. And
you did have your salary cap primers, part 2, part 3, if you wanted to kind of lay out just the Cliff Notes version of what you detailed there.
Yeah, most of and let me pull up my pages here real quick so I get some accurate info here. Most of the things I wanted to let people know were kind of the forthcoming costs, not only over the course of the next 7 weeks prior to the start of the new league year, and then after that as well too. And I think a lot of people look at those giant. I don't know. You read some of these other blogs. How much? 80 million? You said some of these blogs say that the Steelers have in cap space. Look, the hard now of it right now is that the Steelers are roughly like 32 million under the cap right now, but that's as the roster sits right now in the Rule of 51 and nothing else related to it. But when you look at some of the things coming that the team's going to have to account for, look, you have Deontay Johnson and going to get a small increase because of the proven performance escalator there. You've got the offseason roster bonus placeholder amount that's a little less than $1 million. Those things. You got guys like John Simon and some of these future guys that are going to start, that are signing, that's going to eat up 100, 200,000 here. All that stuff starts adding up. And on top of it, look, this team just up until recently didn't even have a Rule of 51. So you're working on a number that was more in line of like 40 million under, but wasn't even a Rule of 51. Now, when you get past the start of the new league year, don't forget, you have a 52nd and 53rd player you have to account for. At worst, that's going to be 1.4 million, a little over that you have to account for. A 16-man practice squad, and building it the way the Steelers normally like to build it with 4 veterans on there, you're talking about nearly $3.6 million in cap space that you have to make sure you have allotted for that. How many players are going to be on IR come week 1 of the season, Alex? We obviously can't answer that question, but when you go back and look at last year, you had the likes of Zach Banner, Stephon Tuitt, Anthony McFarland Jr., Joshua Dobbs, DeMarcus Acey, and DeMarcus Christmas all on that list. Now, yeah, technically you have roster displacements that's going to cover a lot of that, because if you have an expensive guy go on IR, you're probably going to have a cheaper guy replacing them on the back end. But in the long and short of it, you probably better plan on that eating up about $2.8 million or so in salary cap space to accommodate the displacement costs of it all, the rookie pool, the draft picks, the undrafted, the rookie class. You look at that. By the time You're looking at what you call effective cap space needed to accommodate all that. There's going to be another $3.5 million associated with that. And then an area that nobody likes to talk about, that they always try to go rob year in, year out, that they're wrong about, is the in-season cap space that the team's going to want. And I was firm on this last year as well too, and I ended up being right and closer to the number. In fact, they went even a little bit more than what I thought they would have in season cap space. So I think at this point, with what the cap is or what costs are and practice squad elevations, you better plan on the Steelers putting aside $10 million in available cap space at the start of the season. Now, is that a hard cost? No, but it's something that you have to have available come the start of the season. So you better plan for it. So when you look at all these kind of totals, and this is just post start of the new league year, I mean, on the conservative side, you're looking at 21 million, Alex, in that. Now, this is a very fluid situation along the lines here. And in fact, a lot of this money the team will need of that 21 million, you're not actually going to have to need until right at week 1 of the season, right? Because 52nd, 53rd player, practice squad, your $10 million in-season fund that you're pulling from, your the IR amount and all like that. But you better account for it somewhere along the lines. Now, this is the equivalent of me being the old man that walks into the room at the birthday party and popping all the kids' balloons in that. Now, is there any reason to worry about this offseason? No. In a word, no. Because of what this team can do with contract terminations. We'll have to see what happens with Ben's contract, what they're able to do there here in the next coming week. Any restructures that might happen here before the start. You can there's no I don't believe there's any roster bonus involved with TJ Watt this offseason here. So there's no time frame really other than week 1 of the season to get a restructure done on him. Do I think they will do a restructure on TJ Watt at some point during the offseason? Yes. But it's not anything that this team has to do by the start of March. This thing could get into really late into you want to make sure the guy stays healthy throughout the offseason, right? But you could get this guy 11th hour restructure done to free up a lot of that extra space that we just talked about that this team this team will need. So I think keep that in the back of your head if you're listening, that possibly at some point, during the offseason, there's going to be a full contract restructure done on TJ Watt as long as he stays healthy. The main takeaway, and I think people probably have read that, the Steelers are going to be flush with cap space, and we're going to see spending in free agency like we haven't seen in years. I would temper your expectations in that. I think there will be some spending in free agency, maybe a little bit more, slightly more than what we've seen, obviously over the last, decade. But I'm not expecting it to be as hog wild as some are expecting. The biggest thing that could happen potentially is a quarterback of some way, shape, or form that ends up being a big kind of splash that way. But if you think the Steelers are going to run out there and spend $30 million, $40 million in free agency, I would sort of temper those expectations. Plain and simple, this team will be fine. This team will be able to carry out whatever they need to carry out easier than ever, or at least in the last decade when it comes to cap situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that overall assessment and sentiment. I think they can certainly make 1 or 2 fairly noticeable moves in free agency, but regardless of the opinion of how aggressive this team will or will not be, or to what degree. It's just important to get the numbers right and just know what the actual information is and know exactly roughly what this team is working with. And that's where you come in and do a great job about laying out the costs and the considerations and money that'll be earmarked and those kinds of things. Now, they can create cap space. As you said, there's an article that you wrote the other day that kind of outlines the ways they can free up additional cap space through structures and cuts and stuff like that. So that's important as well, but it's just good to know what the actual numbers are.
Right. Because fans go into this offseason thinking it's going to be one thing, and then they get into the new league year and they say, well, why didn't this happen?
Right. And then they hold a team like they're mad at the team for that, even though the team, was making smart moves based on its actual budget and not a pretend budget.
And look, if you want to look at realistic restructures, we already talked about Watt. I mean, there is over $17.2 million in cap space that could be had by a full restructure. That's a lot of cap space to be able to create. All right. Now, Cameron Hayward at his age, do you want to restructure him right now? We'll see if they need to, but there is nearly $6.6 million in available salary cap space to be had there if you want to restructure that. Now, Kim Sutton, I included him in the list of guys that are what I would consider, I guess, quote unquote, realistic candidates to be restructured. But there's a lot of void years on his. I think this team would really have to be in a pinch to get into a situation where they would restructure Cam Sutton's contract the way it is laid out currently. Now, when you get into possible contract terminations, probably not going to get much pushback from you on this. I mean, you got guys leading the list here, and Joe Schobert and Zach Banner, and we've already kind of, I think, talked about them a little bit there, especially Banner. I think you got to make some decisions with those guys by the time March 16th rolls around there. Now, if I'm the Steelers, and I'll probably get some flack from this, I don't know how you feel. I'd go to Zach Banner and I say, look, we paid you last year, and for whatever reason you couldn't get on the field and be that starter there. We're going to have to cut you unless you take a cut down to a minimum. That's the way I would approach it with him. If Banner is seriously about wanting to compete and show that he can finally get on the field, I think he takes a cut like that. If not, then I think you do have to terminate his contract that way. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Joe Schobert's a different animal here, because Joe Schobert might have some marketability above a minimum salary, and he might say, go ahead and cut my contract, terminate me and let me see what's out there and all like that. But those are the two biggest names. And then obviously the other big name that's out there is going to be what happens with Stephon Tuitt over the course of the next 8 weeks here.
Right. And Tuitt, we still don't know what's going to happen there. Banner, he can't play at his salary. Schobert can't play at his salary. You got to do at least something with those guys. If you cut both of them, it would make a lot of sense. So, we'll see, but those are moves this team could and probably should be considering.
And then also we'll see in the next few weeks what happens with the Ben Roethlisberger contract and language in that. Minkah Fitzpatrick at some point during the offseason, it probably is not, people are going to stress about, is Minkah going to get a deal or not for most of the offseason? I would expect the timing on that to go a lot like what the timing went with T.J. Watt last offseason. In fact, don't be surprised if Minkah's groin or his hamstring tightens up around the start of training camp time there. That could potentially be something that we're talking about on into training camp. I wouldn't expect them to there's nothing stopping them from getting the extension done early, but just generally when it comes to these mega contracts with these guys, the Steelers like to wait until they get into training camp situations with these guys when it comes to locking them up. And then what's going to happen with Deontay Johnson, Alex? That's another one that could probably go either way.
Yeah, we had that discussion a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. It still could go either way. So I think Johnson and Minkah are ones to watch in the summer, but those things are not going to occur before the start of the new league year.
As far as contract terminations go, is there anybody else that you think potentially should be added to the list of pre-new league year possible terminations?
No one coming.
Question.
No one coming to mind. No one that's going to probably save you enough money to really move the needle or make it worth it. I haven't looked at the whole list of names, but I think Banner and Schobert are generally known as the top two.
And then obviously the discussion about Tuitt will continue.
Right. Yeah. And that's just based on, does he want to play? If he does, welcome him back. No question. If he wants to retire, then that's perfectly fine as well. Again, the only difficult situation there potentially could be if he's unsure if he wants to play or not heading into the new league year, heading into the draft season.
Okay.
All right, Dave, I think we covered things pretty well. So before we get to reading emails, I do want to make our picks here for AFC and NFC Championship weekend. Of course, before we do that, we'll hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
Yeah, let's get to MyBookie here. From all the biggest games to the smallest events, make every bet worth your while with MyBookie. Start by doubling your first deposit instantly with MyBookie's first deposit bonus. Double your money before you even place a bet, and all you have to do is sign up at mybookie.ag and deposit using exclusive promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE to receive this offer. There are tons of great games and props to take advantage of. Obviously, this week, Alex, with the league championship games, basketball obviously well underway as well too, both college and pro. There's hockey out there. Man, there's never been a better time right now to get into MyBookie and become a new customer for them, especially right ahead of these championship games taking place, and obviously the Super Bowl will follow soon after that as well. Don't wait any longer. Head to MyBookie today to redeem your double deposit bonus so you can get in the game and start winning big today. Make sure you use promo code TERRIBLE to receive your first deposit instantly in your account. No hassle, no wait. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie at mybookie.ag. I appreciate them being a sponsor of the Terrible Podcast once again all season long.
For sure. All right, Dave, let's make our two picks for championship weekend.
All right. Let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals at what's the new term of that stadium? It's something that Arrowhead.
I do not know. I don't follow all the corporate sponsor stuff.
The Chiefs will be hosting the Bengals right now. MyBookie has the line at this at a 7.5. Chiefs favored by a 7.5 at home.
Bengals fans are going to be upset about that, considering they just beat them a couple weeks ago. That was in Cincinnati, though, I believe. Man, I give the Bengals a lot of credit. I mean, that offense, I think, is capable, and that's obviously proven they can go toe for toe with Kansas City. But I got to go with the Chiefs. Playoff football, AFC title game. You saw what Mahomes did last week. They're going to correct their mistakes from the first time around. I got to go KC. It's a pretty big line.
Sure is.
I'm going to say the Bengals cover this one, but the Chiefs do win it.
All right. What did you think about the footage to come out of that Chiefs game last week there with the Kelsey adjustment?
Do it and all that, yeah.
Yeah, what about that? That's next level stuff right there.
Yeah, they're just special players making special plays and great football IQs and not just great athletes. So, I mean, you'd kill to have a guy like Travis Kelce on your team.
I mean, you want to talk about a pre-snap look and do it, changing it up and going off script, man. That's the kind of stuff that wins big games like that, without a doubt.
Yeah. So where are you going, Dave?
I'm going with the Chiefs. Look, I think beating a team twice in one season like this, especially when you're looking at an organization like the Chiefs and their defensive coordinator being able to adjust. You look at what happened to the Bengals and how many times the sacks that they gave up in that last game. I think this is our blowout of the weekend here. I think the Chiefs hand it to them. I think the game ends up being a little bit too big for Joe Burrow this time around, so I'm going to take the Chiefs to blow them out. I will lay that 7.5 points, Alex.
Oh, wow. Okay. I like it.
All right. The San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams. I think this one's probably got a potential maybe to be a little bit closer game here. Obviously, the line on it's a lot closer as well, too. The Rams at home laying 3.5 points against the 49ers.
Yeah, I got to go with the Rams. And listen, I give the 49ers a lot of credit. I didn't think they really had much of a chance to beat Green Bay, although it was a lot of Green Bay beating Green Bay in that game. But this offense, they just really can't put up enough points. The Rams can. They're more explosive. Defensively, they're still fairly strong. I get the 49ers from a scheme standpoint. Shanahan, they do a really good job of putting guys in position to succeed, especially someone like Deebo Samuel. But end of the day, Rams to me are just a better team.
I would agree with that as well too, and I think a guy like Aaron Donald has can really have a chance to highly impact this game as well too. Man, I'm rooting for Stafford. Stafford's the kind of guy that you get like to see him try to make the big game here. Obviously, Aaron Donald being a Pitt product, there's a lot to root for in that as well too. I just think the Rams are going to have too much on this, so I once again I'm going to have the favorite covered. I'm going chalk all the way this weekend. So give me the Rams to lay the 3.5 points. Just for some fun here, Alex, the over-under on the Chiefs, the total points scored on the Chiefs-Bengals game is 54.5. Will there be more or less than 54.5 points scored in that game?
Feels a little low, honestly. I'm going to say the over.
I'm going to take the under on that one there. So I will take under 54 because I just think the Bengals might end up having problems. I think they fall in a big hole in this one. Is what I'm counting on here. So I could see something like a 30 to 20 game, something along those lines that would still have me under the number there. The over and under in the 49ers Rams game is considerably less at 45.5. Are you taking the over or under 45.5?
Yeah, I'll take the under just slightly. That 49ers defense, to their credit, really good unit, really strong, well coached by DeMeco Ryans. That's what kept him in the Packers game last week after allowing that opening drive touchdown. So I want to recognize and certainly give those guys credit as well. So I think for the Rams, they will get a couple big plays, but it won't be the giant shootout kind of variety.
I am going to go the opposite way on this one as well on you. I'm going to take the over 45.5 points on this. I think the man comes charging through in the back door late here on that over under with a late garbage touchdown, maybe by the 49ers to put this one over the number here. Look, if you never used my bookie before, there are 53 props listed, prop bets for each one of these games that you can find on there as well too. And oh Lord, you know how these props they got a ton of these type things as well too. And anything imaginable that you want to bet on prop wise, they have at mybookie.ag. And obviously we will have kind of the Super Bowl contest right ahead of the Super Bowl that we do every year with the cash prize to a reader of the site as well too. But plenty to bet on at mybookie.ag. So we're a little bit different there, Alex. I have the difference being the Chiefs cover the Bengals in that game.
Man, it'll be different that you'll get to watch the championship games from your home on your big TV, and I'll watch it in an airport somewhere because I'll be on my way to the Senior Bowl. That's the one thing I don't like about the Senior Bowl. I always travel on championship weekend.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully, why don't you are you able to watch it on the plane? Why don't you get the TV service on the plane there?
Yeah, it's sometimes spotty. We'll see. Hopefully, I get a good enough situation that I can do that. It'll be fine though. Well worth it for sure. All right, Dave, before we get to read emails, your scouting report went up today on one Romeo Dubs from Nevada. That was written by Jonathan. And so that'll be interesting to check out. I don't know if you got a chance to look at his report
not yet.
But I think came away pretty high on him. Gave him a 7.9 grade. That's potential starter, good backup. That's like the second, third round, I think, grade that is. So yeah, check that one out on Steelers Depot.
Yeah, the main thing that I'm interested to see him run, Alex, and see how he runs in his underwear. To be quite honest with you, because watching him plenty on tape, I have a little bit of question maybe about his top end speed and all like that. He can obviously seen him separate a lot of times, but you get into some of those other conferences like the one that he plays in, the talent's not there. I also want to see the reports on kind of some of the drills that going up against some of that press man coverage as well too. Look, I like the kid. I think he could be a guy that potentially that the Steelers have interest in too, and maybe one of those guys that's I don't know, third roundish kind of type guys. And I do think they need a guy that can stretch field. And as far as I can tell, and I think I mentioned this the other day as well, too, on a round day, from everything that I read on him, he is just a great kid, and that the Steelers are going to love him from a character aspect here as well, too.
Jonathan notes that apparently his receiver coach called him an anti-diva and just said he's real team first and real selfless and all those kinds of important traits.
I was talking with Dr. Mel and Josh Carney the other day over lunch. And I mean, we're pretty much look. This team did not draft a wide receiver last year, right? And it's very rare for this team to exit a draft over the years under Kevin Colbert, at least, where they have not drafted a wide receiver. So with that, I mean, you're pretty convinced this team's going to draft a wide receiver this year, right?
I am, assuming that James Washington's gone, and even if Juju stays, you still probably want to draft one from the outside. But I will just say this team does not have a lot of draft picks right now. So for all the positions they probably need to address, they don't really have the ammunition to probably get there. So unless they make more moves, more trades, and things like that. So just recognize that fact as well.
All right,
Dave, let's get to reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's get them kind of sorted here and try to get back to some of these older ones in here that we didn't get the other day here. This one from Jonathan Mason writes in, Dave, great show yesterday. Look forward to more of those during the draft prep. Another crap speed wide receiver for you is Calvin Austin III from Memphis. I think you will be at the Senior Bowl. Alex, I know you're trying to run through probably a lot of these guys as quick as possible to get kind of up to speed on some of them. I know you have not taken deep dives into many players still yet, and you're going to reserve obviously a lot of that when you have more time after the Senior Bowl. But do you have any thoughts on an early Calvin Austin III from Memphis? Because I do not.
What's his name? Calvin what?
Austin out of Memphis.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. With the fact that I have to ask his name probably means I don't have a lot of thoughts on him, I guess, as I'm trying to see if he's even there. If he's not on the national team, let me see if he's on the American team. He is going to be there. Okay. I don't have any thoughts right now. I was kind of going through just bios last night on a couple of guys. I watched some Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama, so I'll add that to my list to at least research and get some basic background info on Calvin Austin.
What do you think about the USA wide receiver kid that we talked about the other day?
Yeah, I like him. Put up some really big numbers. He's, I think he's pretty well built, a little slim, listed, I think 6'3", 190, but strong and physical and runs through contact. Definitely a burner, can definitely, win vertically. His release package is pretty nice overall, adjusted the football well, occasional drop, but overall I think he's able to pluck the ball outside his frame. So an interesting combination of good size and really good speed and some physicality to run through contact. I like this tape.
All right, and what little bit I've seen, there's one of these long striders that is going to the Thornton kid is going out of Baylor is going to be at the East West or at East West Shrine. I'm going to have a problem keep calling it the Shrine Bowl this week. And Josh Carney's hard and heavy on him, and I went and watched a little bit of tape on that Baylor product last night there, and that's another kid that can get down the field, and I think he had something like, I want to say 9 catches of more than 25, longer than 25 air yards last season alone. So that's a guy that during this week out here in Las Vegas that people might want to pay a little bit of attention to. I think you'll probably be seeing Josh spend some time talking a little bit about him this next week.
All right. Looking forward to that for sure.
Chris Bailey writes in, hi, Dave and Alex. Hope this offseason finds you both well. I must say how much I love the Wednesday Roundtable. How great was that show, Alex? We're
really
going to have to do so obviously some more of those. A lot of the guys had great contributions and a variety of opinions put forward intelligently and respectively. Please, can we have more of these as the offseason goes on, even if they are 4-hour episodes? I'm all for that. I would like to put forward my thoughts on the quarterback situation and then ask a question off the back of it. I agree with you when you say that to win a Super Bowl, any team needs an elite quarterback. I don't feel we have such a quarterback on our roster anymore. Thanks, Ben. And I don't see us trading for one, of which Rodgers and Wilson are the only 2 elite quarterbacks in my book. He writes, any other free agent is just a bridge quarterback, in my opinion. He writes, he says, so how do we go about getting our next elite quarterback. I strongly think we need to identify our guy and swing for the fences to get him. But given this year's quarterback class, is there that guy? Can you both talk to the quarterbacks in this year's draft who has the best chance of being able to be the elite quarterback and go up against Mahomes, Allen, etc.? If we go after a quarterback in this draft, I would rather be a high ceiling guy. Look, I mean, Chris. I understand the questions here, and look, I mean, you listened to the roundtable the other day. That's where all of us are on I think on the quarterback class right now. So it's January 28th. Right now, we have a lot of time to dig deeper in this thing. I know Alex and all the guys. When you guys get down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to sort through who is maybe the guy that could be the guy, if you will, if there is such a thing there. And I'm not to that point where I can say who is the guy that has the most potential to be the Mahomes Allen. I'm not convinced that guy's in this class, to be quite honest with you, from where I sit right now. But I have a lot of tape work still to do on it. I know you do as well, too. So, and long story short, I'm not ready to say that there is a guy or isn't a guy in this year's draft class that could maybe rival a Mahomes or an Allen.
Sure. Comparing almost anyone to those guys is going to be a really tall task. But to the overall point, where do you find that elite guy? It's going to be through the draft, unless you're going to trade for somebody. Those are the two camps. Internal option's not going to be that guy. A veteran free agent, so rare for an elite quarterback to get on the market. Brady is an exception to that rule, but it's a very rare exception. It's almost always through the draft. And so that's where your elite talent, if you're even going to have a chance to find one and acquire one, is going to come from. That's how most teams get their quarterbacks.
Here's the thing. You want to talk about quarterbacks that can win you a championship that maybe you didn't draft. Look what's happening right now with two quarterbacks left in these AFC or in these championship games, right? Stafford came from another organization that he was originally drafted in the first round, right?
Right.
All right. And
Garoppolo came from the Patriots.
Right. And the former second round pick, on top of it there. But both those guys have been stewing around in this soup for a while, So is there a guy that's been marginally okay that you can, not named Aaron Rodgers, not named Russell Wilson, that you can go out and get that can maybe become next season or the seasons after Stafford or Garoppolo?
Yeah, it's just going to be tough. I mean, the name that I think in terms of like trade that maybe we should talk about more if it becomes available is Derek Carr. Would you be willing to trade for a guy like that? I know you have to do another contract with him, which is fine. I'm happy about that actually, because you're locking him down long term. But could that be a maybe slightly more realistic route for Pittsburgh?
I mean, how mobile would you consider? Does he fit the mobile? Boy, Mike Thomas sure has spent a lot of time talking about mobility, hasn't he?
He has. I certainly would like that, and no doubt about it. But I don't know if he's going to be blinded by it.
Is he putting on too thick?
No, I think he's just talked about it in appropriate terms. But I don't know if we'd be blinded by it and be like, unless Tomlin's philosophy is not going to be unless you're Kyler Murray, you're not going to come to Pittsburgh. I think Carr is sufficiently mobile enough, considering the other talent that he has.
Of all these these quarterbacks not named Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson that are the names being thrown out there, the Kirk Cousins, the Carrs, the Garoppolos, the maybe throw Marcus Mariota's name into the bottom of that. The Matt Ryan name's been thrown out there quite a bit. Of all those kind of guys, which one would you think would get not named Rodgers and not named Russell Wilson would give a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers the best opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl next season in 2022?
I would say Carr, and pretty easily compared to the list of names that you kind of rattle off. If you're excluding a guy like Aaron Rodgers, yeah, I think Carr easily tops that list.
I would as well too. I think that guy's got enough experience that and young, that could still potentially get it right done in the right organization, especially if you have a decent defense on the other side with him there.
Yeah, now he's got to become available first, and we have no idea, who their head coach hire is going to be, who their GM hire is going to be. Those things will determine Carr's future. And so if they hire McDaniels, reportedly he likes Carr, but we have no idea right now. But I'm just kind of thinking about some possibilities that may open up in a couple of weeks.
He is 30 years old. He is due. He's entering the final year of his current contract at $19.77 million there. So that's it when it comes to him. That's here's the thing. If you did trade for him, are you going to make him play out the 1 year deal and say, look, have at it, and you might be a 1 year rental for us, or are you going to trade for him and give him $35 million?
Yeah, you're trading him with the intent. You're trading a lot for him, probably to acquire him, A, and then B, you're going to give him a long-term contract, so he's not a rental, so he's not one and done, or you're forced to tag him or whatever. You're not going to let that play out because you're going to have to give up something substantial to acquire him. I
mean, if indeed he is put on the market, there's going to be a trade market for him.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it'll be a pretty robust market as well. So Pittsburgh will not be the only team, if they're a team, interested in him.
Okay, let's go here down to Justin Brisbane writes in, who was your favorite Steeler from the last 15 to 20 years that left prematurely or didn't pan out and left you unfulfilled? Your favorite underachiever, if you will. This can be due to injury, contract, disciplinary, etc. He says his is Martavis Bryant. I feel like him falling short was bad for the Steelers and him personally, obviously. Also, a side note, I like the 2-hour podcast more than the shorter 1-hour shows. Justin, look, first thing when I started to read off the first sentence of your question there was Martavis. What could have Martavis Bryant become?
Yeah, he could have been and should have been a top-level receiver, which is an incredible skill set of height, weight, speed, big playability. I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch, and it's unfortunate all the off-the-field stuff has really derailed his career.
And I think for obvious reasons of where would Ryan Shazier be maybe in his development right now?
Yeah, obviously he's not an underachiever,
right?
But in the sense of what could have been, Shazier is probably the best answer for that. I can't think of a better answer for that than him.
Anybody else that maybe came in and washed out so quick or something that maybe thought you had higher hopes for?
Yeah, I'd have to think. I mean, I thought Sean Davis would be a pretty good player coming out of Maryland. I think Pittsburgh kind of disrupted his development by moving him around so much. Senquez Golson, what could have been there? Again, unfortunate, all the injuries. Never played a game. Never got into even a preseason game. I mean, just the number of guys that have been to that point are very, very few. It's like him and not even Christian Hackenberg. Hackenberg even played some football for the Jets. So you think about what could have been with him with all the interceptions and stuff like that. But I think Shazier, again, not calling him an underachiever, but just from the what could have been aspect of Martavis Bryant from the last 15 years, probably the top 2 names. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but those are names coming to mind.
I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there as well, too. But that's what pops in my Martavis Bryant's first one. That guy, there was a time, Alex, I think there's an article somewhere on SteelersDepot.com talking about Bucky Brooks and is Martavis Bryant the next Randy Moss, kind of player? And man, it sure makes you kind of wonder if he could have became that guy, had he kept his head, head clear. And I just think he just became too much of a hassle off the field, obviously, and for teams to stick with, because technically when his downfall started, he still seemed to have a lot of talent.
Oh yeah, never the issue. I mean, I'm just looking at his combine numbers coming out. Basically 6'4", 211, ran a 4.42, 39-inch vertical, 10.4 broad. Just crazy, crazy numbers. I mean, the guy, is he still playing? Was he in the CFL? He was playing with that indoor league, the Massachusetts Pirates, as kind of a on the side thing. I think I was waiting for the CFL to play. I don't know if he's playing in the CFL right now or not, but let's see if I can find that real quick.
How old would he be now?
He is 30.
Wow.
We were all getting old, Dave. He was released by the Agronauts December 23rd, so he never played for Toronto this year. did not report to training camp, according to Wikipedia. At least, and by the way, you asked the other day about if Jameer Jones was still a Ram. He is not. He was released by the Rams late in the year and is now a member of the Jaguars.
Okay. All right. Andreas Antoine writes in, hey, guys, really enjoyed the roundtable discussion. It was a breath of fresh air and different perspective. Hopefully we'll be able to hear more of those throughout the season. What are your MyBookie records coming into the championship weekend? I think I'm one game. No, I think we're tied now, I think. Be honest with you.
You were one game ahead.
I was one game ahead. I think I won the regular season honors. Not that there's a large championship belt that comes with that. But I think I got Alex by one game. But I think because of maybe the way things that transpired last week, I think we are even going into the you'll be able to. I'll have the totals on SteelersDepot.com Sunday morning, and I think we are even there. I think
our records are like around 500 for the year, though. Like we didn't have a great year this year.
Slightly above 500.
Slightly above.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Take that coin flip.
Yeah, there you go. Does a double explosive play count for 1 or 2 on the Tox differential? Look, an explosive play is an explosive play, but I really think, Andreas, I think the Tox stat needs a lot of updating these days. Maybe that'll be something we put Clayton on during the offseason here to come up with maybe some metrics of how double explosive plays should count maybe in the Tox stat overall. So, basically, Andreas, if it's an 80-yard touchdown, play, that only counts as one explosive play. But, I mean, what a game changer an explosive play, especially maybe a double explosive play of 40 yards or more. How impactful is that in a game, Alex?
Oh, it's huge. It's monumental. It can certainly change and define games. So you're right. It does feel a bit weird to weigh a 21-yard completion the same as an 80-yard touchdown,
or even a 41-yard, play touchdown like that. So, look, I'm a huge fan of the Tox differential stat at the +2, but at this point, as with all stats, over time, those things can probably be bettered over time. So I'm sure Clayton's probably listening to this. Maybe that's something he jumps on during the offseason is maybe build a better Tox differential stat, along those lines. Good question, Andreas. Let's see if I can jump ahead here. Joe Clemens draft roundtable feedback. Hey guys, just want to say I absolutely love the draft roundtable with everyone. He says, I'm with Dave. I could keep listening to it all day. I'm sure eventually people will be saying that's enough. But so I'll just say that the length was good to cover the preview of the quarterbacks for the bowl game. In conclusion, please, sir, may I have some more? Thanks for that, Joe C.
We'll have those guys on next week or 2 weeks from now, recapping those things. So there'll be more of that for sure.
LM writes in, excited for the best Steelers draft coverage out there. Need speed at receiver, blah, blah, blah. First round, I'm excited for all the quarterback, offensive line and defensive line profiles. Thanks for that, LM. I think we had hit that one there. I'm trying to see. Here's one from Muthina writes in, I'm hearing a lot of bad takes about the quarterback position. Here is my take. He says, when you don't have a franchise quarterback, you don't pass on a franchise quarterback. I don't care how good another player is at some other position. If there's a franchise quarterback available, you get him. Screw the draft board. I don't want to hear about how this isn't a deep class for quarterbacks. You're only looking for one. Okay, well, that's fine. But what if the one that you want's not available to you? I guess what he's saying is you trade up at all cost, I guess is what he's saying there. Look, I'm going to go back to my, we'll see how I feel in a couple of months from now, but from where I'm at right now, I'm not overly thrilled about this class from where I sit here right now. But he says, I hear people say next year's quarterback class is going to be deep. To that, he says, who the hell knows how things, I couldn't even tell you who's the next. I mean, I don't know. I know probably NFL teams probably have probably looked ahead to some degree. Even if there are a bunch of quarterbacks next year, who knows who will be available. Moreover, have we all forgotten the tanking for Tua thing? Everybody assumed Tua was a can't miss prospect, generational talent type of player. I don't recall people saying tank for Mahomes or tank for Allen. In closing, the only thing that matters is the Steelers' talent evaluation. They have to nail their analysis and properly identify that guy. If he isn't there, don't force the issue. If he is there, be aggressive and make it happen. I mean, of everything that you wrote, Mathena, in this, I think your closing statement is the thing that's, the thing that matters there. Is the Steelers' talent evaluation. Look, you don't draft a quarterback in this draft just to draft one of these 6 guys, because look, I mean, odds are probably good that the next Mahomes and Allen isn't in this class, probably more so than saying that there is, right, Alex?
Yeah, it's tough going around trying to find the next guy. Everyone wants to do it. It's a lot harder, it's a lot easier said than done. So, but to the point, you got to be aggressive about the quarterback. Sure, I think you have to be. That's going to be the missing piece that really hangs over your organization until you try or accomplish in filling that spot. So yeah, you need to be aggressive, but if a guy's not there, a guy's not there.
And if the guy's not worthy of it, he's not worthy of it. I mean, you're already, and we'll see how this thing, there's already talk now that no quarterback should go off the board until 10. Now, will that happen? This is a quarterback driven world, man. And some GMs now are probably thinking, I got to see if this kid can make a splash. And if he does, it saves me. If he doesn't, well, I'm out of job anyway. You tend to see some quarterbacks just in every given year drafted in the top 15 just for the sheer fact that it's a supply and demand. It's such an important position.
Yeah. I said,
so whoever the top quarterback, in this class might be, whoever that ends up being, there's a good chance that him and one other guy is going to be drafted in the first 15 picks before the Steelers even pick. So what would they be willing to trade of their draft capital to go up to get a guy like that?
Sure. It's not easy to find your franchise quarterback when you pick in the 20s. And you can try to trade up, and that's possible, but other teams may trade up as well. Teams may prevent you from doing that. So nothing is easy about this process, but you do have to deal with it and go through this process to come out the other side and find your franchise guy, or hopefully find your franchise guy.
I hate to pick on the email here, but what is his main bitch here?
I think you're just trying to recognize the fact that you have to find a franchise quarterback. Until you do that your franchise is not going to get to where it wants to be, or not going to be truly competitive until you check it off the list. Which I get. I agree with.
And that's something that we have said continually.
Yeah, I don't know if it didn't feel like it was a disagreement with something we said. Maybe it was, but just kind of just recognition and again repeating how important that's going to be, especially to the idea. I think his gripe was this quarterback class isn't that good. I think maybe he had some pushback there saying if you can find just one guy in this quarterback class, then that's all that really matters. Seems to be the point.
The one bolded statement that he has in this whole email of his is, when you don't have a franchise quarterback, you don't pass on a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that statement. If you're able to, if you luck into one, but finding that guy being in that situation is tough to do. I
have a feeling this Muthina is going to be highly disappointed if the Steelers don't draft a quarterback this draft.
Yeah,
that's a feeling. I feel like what his underlying narrative is here is that the Steelers better not come out of this draft without a quarterback, is what it feels like.
Yeah, and we'll just have to see. I have no idea what the board's going to look like and what options will be there and who won't be there. That's all a couple months away.
All right, one last one from Todd Bays. With all the talk of who is the problem and who needs fired, replaced, Canada, Butler, Colbert, Tomlin, Ben, I think the bigger issues are the roster's free agent draft process itself. Not sure if that is more on Colbert or Tomlin on the collective, but would love for you guys to dig deep this offseason into questionable decisions over the last several years. Is it scouting, player development, or just poor decision-making, parentheses reaching? I know this is results bias, but that is how you judge success in this business. He mentions Edmonds and Bush in the first round. Lane, 3rd round, can't get on the field and had to trade for a 5th round in Witherspoon. Back-to-back years, 4th round picks on Snell and McFarland, combined 39 carries this year. No depth at tight end, traded a fit for Vanette. Washington and Claypool, both 2nd round picks, question mark. Green, 3rd round, and had to have an NFL ready center. Offensive line or outside linebacker depth this year. Don't even want to get into typing all that out. I know they have had some of these hits with Johnson and Highsmith, so this is not just piling on and comparing who should have been taken, but more about overall roster assembly. Would like you guys' thoughts and deeper analysis on finding quality depth and the struggles they've had in free agency via the draft. Thanks. Looking forward to all the offseason coverage. Todd, you just covered it, I think. Here's the thing. Steeler fans only see Steeler fans rosters. They don't really look out and drafts specifically. They don't look outside of that and see not that look, it's an enemy called average, right? You should not aspire to be average. But I think when you look around the league and you know, my thought on this has always been, or has been for a while, you cannot miss on your 1st round draft pick when you subscribe to the philosophies of the Pittsburgh Steelers of building through the draft like that. So it does hurt bad when you don't get 10-year players out of the likes of, say, a Bud Dupree, a Jarvis Jones, a Terrell Edmonds, a Devin Bush. I think that's the big, an Artie Burns. That is, when you look back at past Steelers drafts, in my opinion, that's the biggest rub. And then off of that on into the 2nd round picks, you would expect a certain amount of those to really pan out into heavy producers, Pro Bowl type players and or second contracts. Beyond that, I really think it becomes a crapshoot. A measured crapshoot, but not one where you can say, well, look, they only, you get a lot of special teamers out of those. You get a lot of bit players. I think it's a bit much, though, to ask for franchise type players to come out of those kind of players. Now, you're occasionally going to hit on the Antonio Browns. I mean, not enough credit's given there, and not enough credit in other times, I think, are given to what this team's able to do in undrafted free agents and all like that. Alex, what would you like to add in or take away, disagree with what I said there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about the actual gripe of the email, basically just saying that they don't do a good enough job in free agency. Is that the conclusion?
Yeah, he says that he thinks the bigger issues are the roster / free agent draft process itself. I mean, that's all of it.
That's all of it. Yeah, it's kind of everything. So I don't know how to parse that. I think the drafts have been better than what people give it credit for. 2017 was an unbelievably good class with Watt and Juju and Sutton and James Conner at the top. This year's class looks pretty strong at the top with Harris and Freiermuth and Dan Moore. Even 2020's group of Claypool and Dotson and Highsmith, could be better, but it's pretty good. Probably you stack it up to a lot of teams and what they're getting right now. So, yeah, I think some of that stuff, as you said, gets micro-examined just because it's your team that you follow so closely.
Look, and I think it goes back to what I said, too. It's incredibly tough on a team like the Steelers who likes to do that bargain shopping in free agency, and one that has been dealing with the sins of the franchise quarterback for a long time now. It hurts to have close. Look, you're not going to hit on every 1st round draft pick, but it hurts to. And look, I mean, what happened with Ryan Shazier? That happened. It's unfortunate. How would a healthy Ryan Shazier impacted this team over the course of the last 3 years?
Sure, it also wouldn't have required them to trade up for Devin Bush. Right,
Devin Bush wouldn't even be on his team probably right now.
No,
and the domino effect of that now is obviously felt, especially right now when Devin Bush not playing. So it's easy to look back in the rearview mirror, and without a doubt, I had my questions about Artie Burns when he was drafted. I think a lot of people had their questions about Edmonds and potentially being a quote unquote reach when that happened. Now, what is to say if they in Edmonds' defense, and I'm not going to play huge Edmonds cheerleader here. You're never going to get me to do that. But the guy has made progress in each of his NFL seasons, I feel. And I feel he's worthy of a $4 million, $5 million a season contract right now for maybe another 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, so if you get a guy on a second contract like that, a guy that maybe not, obviously not all pro or not Pro Bowl, is a pick still kind of justified to some degree?
I mean, it certainly hurts a lot less than a complete whiff or a bust. Is it justified? Probably not. But if that's if that's what you get, as long as you avoid those major busts, then I think your franchise tends to survive as long as you're getting hits in other years, which this team has.
I mean, Justin Lane. I mean, I think you of any of us had the biggest issue with Justin Lane, right?
Yeah, I didn't like the combination of stiff-tipped and not being super fast. I mean, but again, it's a third-round pick.
It's a third-round pick, though.
Yeah, those, they you want those to hit. Obviously, they're still, day 2 picks, but they're not going to make or break your franchise, or at least they're not going to break your franchise.
Right. My biggest thing is, especially with the way the Steelers do business, if you want to get on them for not liking what they don't do in free agency, have at it. I mean, it's a fair argument that you think that a lot of people think the Steelers should be more active and higher quality free agent process, but it's not what they do, or not up until now, or at least under the time under Kevin. Heck, the biggest splash was up in several years ago when they went out and got Mike Mitchell on the deal that they got him on. I was like, whoa, how did that turn out?
Yeah, Darius Green, same thing. It was a big splashy signing and didn't work out.
Yeah, people looking at it probably say, but it's probably good. Maybe the Steelers stay away from free agency and all like that. But I guess what I'm getting at, it's all relative. And, what you really, really hate to see is this team not be able to hit or have the misses that they have had kind of in recent years in the first and second round guys, I guess. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's true, but
you look at a guy like Watt, though,
Yeah, and when they've hit big. I mean, they've hit 777s, and so I think you can't be 100% on all your top draft picks. And I think, Devin Bush aside, your top picks have been pretty strong and pretty good contributors overall.
One more, I lied to you, Carly McAdams, just because it's a new name. David Alex, you mentioned on Monday's podcast that if Khan was hired by the Bears, that the Steelers would be in line for a comp third-round pick in the 22 draft as well as the 23 draft due to a minority being hired by another team. My question is, doesn't the same benefits apply to teams for coordinators? Does this also apply to promotions from within? If the Steelers are as strapped for draft capital as they appear, shouldn't the team look to gain draft capital that way if they find a qualified candidate? I still think the smart play is to ride with Rudolph or Haskins for 2022 and work to plug some of these holes, evaluate the quarterback position, then make a decision on the position in 2023 draft if need still exists. My expectation is for both Haskins and Rudolph are very low. However, Carly writes in, but answer Carly's questions about the pick compensation.
Yeah, it only applies for executive roles, so GM and head coach, not coordinator, and it only applies if the guy gets hired away. Does not count if there's an internal promotion. That way, teams can't potentially promote a guy just so they can get the compensatory pick. So it has to be someone else hiring away as opposed to your own internal promotion.
And as far as the whole Rudolph and Haskins thing for 2022, Carly, we'll see. I mean, we're going to find out in the next 8 weeks when it comes to free agents, and even say they don't make a move in free agency that way. Maybe we'll see what they do during the draft. But I wouldn't expect, if they do go the way of the quarterback in the draft, I still wonder if that kid would be a week 1 starter. And I kind of doubt that kid would be.
Yeah, they wouldn't maybe not be the favorite, but again, I just don't like to make those conclusions right away. And you bring the guy into camp, let him compete and see what happens, and may the best man win. That guy's going to start at some point, and so he's just going to start when he's ready. And if he's ready day one, then you start him. If he's not ready day one, then you wait.
All right, today's Friday. You will be in Mobile, if you will, on Monday. So are we going to forego a podcast on Monday or what?
It's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll be away. I'll kind of let you decide if you want to bring maybe Tom on. I think Tom's not going to be at these events. Feel free if you want to just do a Tuesday, Thursday thing with Tom or your own solo thing. But I'm not going to be available next week because I'm not trusting the internet connection at the 3-star hotel that I managed to find. That there was very few hotel options when I booked the place.
All right. So if you listen to this show, let's leave it to be determined what's going to happen there. Because even, I think it might be a good option for me to maybe have Tom on this time of year and start talking about maybe some guys that he's written about, done some stuff with. Maybe I'll be able to slide someone else in with him to talk some Steelers football and what happened over the weekend as well.
Yeah,
too.
Josh should be back for Friday. If you want to bring him, maybe Josh on or Mel on Friday, because he'll be back from the Senior Bowl. They sure, at least Josh, I think, will be.
Right. And I talked to Mel. Dr. Mel's going to start doing some in-depth kind of work on what's happening with Carson Strong in that knee. So look forward to a post coming on that. Maybe we'll have Mel on when she gets back to talk a little bit about that as well, too. We will figure out something next week for sure. Maybe it might not. Maybe it'll be Monday. Maybe it'll be Tuesday. But we'll have some version of the Terrible Podcast next week. It might only be 2 episodes, but we will get something in the can for that. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit that donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Alex, have a safe trip. Look forward to all the work that the people are doing at Steelers Depot down at the All-Star games these next couple weeks here. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.